Hi, I'm Mike Dilk and you're listening to the Relax Back UK show, the show that explores all kinds of health topics relevant to you, your family and your friends. Each week I talk to expert guests from a range of backgrounds to inform and entertain you. So please do join the Relax Back UK family and stay tuned.
Hi, and thank you for joining me on the Relax Back UK show. Two very different topics today. First of all, type 1 diabetes.
Type 1 diabetes is a deficiency of insulin. There's no insulin within the body, which is a hormone which allows the body to produce energy from carbohydrates. So without that hormone present in the body, the body doesn't produce the energy that it needs, and it starts to basically, utilize other tissues to make that energy. And so you get the consequences of that with the thirst, the hunger, and the losing weight.
Now, this gets spoken about less often than type 2. I talked with Karen Palmer, Head of Medical General Medicine in the UK and Ireland for Sanofi, and also 4 members of the singing band Group 1, how you can manage type 1 diabetes such that it really doesn't have to hold you back in life at all. Then on something very different, the consequences of our barbecue choices.
Around 17% of the Amazon deforestation is actually caused by charcoal making, which is worrying. So I feel like we just need to be more careful of who we're choosing, because there are other producers who have rigid sustainability practices like regenerative forests.
Klim Artanoff is MD of Global Tech Limited, and he tells us all about charcoal and how we can reduce its environmental effects. So please do stay tuned for a great show. Thank you.
This show is cool!
My guests for the discussion of type 1 diabetes are Karen Palmer. She's Head of Medical General Medicine for UK and Ireland at Sanofi, and also the 4 members of the band Group 1. And I got them to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Olivia. Hi, I'm Lulabelle.
Hi, I'm Ella.
And hey, I'm Finley.
Okay, thanks everyone for joining me today. I've never tried to talk to 5 people at once, so I hope I can keep control. Please be gentle with me, and we'll see how it goes. But thanks for taking the time to chat. First of all, Karen, what is type 1 diabetes? Because we hear about diabetes quite a lot, but mostly about type 2, I think. So educate us kind of briefly, if you can, on what the two things are and the differences.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, ask the question back to the girls as well, because they're living with type 1 diabetes, so it can give you the true life experience. But type 1 diabetes is a deficiency of insulin. There's no insulin within the body, which is a hormone which allows the body to produce energy from carbohydrates. So without that hormone present in the body, the body doesn't produce the energy that it needs, and it starts to basically, utilize other tissues to make that energy. And so you get the consequences of that with the thirst, the hunger, and the losing weight. Type 2 diabetes is a gradual decline in insulin. So eventually will require insulin, but has a much different entry into the condition itself.
Okay, so essentially type 1 diabetes is in the genes. You get it as you're born with it. You have it. You can't. There's no choice. No,
so sorry if I gave the wrong information, but just to correct you, so type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune condition. It can come from anybody at any time, can be diagnosed with it. The reasons behind developing type 1 diabetes aren't fully known at the moment, but they're still being investigated. So you're not born with it, no. And all the girls can talk to you about when they were diagnosed and how that diagnosis went for them. I'm definitely going to talk to them about diabetes, etc. But before we get on to that, let me just ask them. So you're all in the band. You all have type 1. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you know each other before the band, or did kind of Sanofi bring you together?
No, Sanofi and Stagecoach brought us together.
Okay. And how long have you been singing together?
A few months, maybe 3 months.
Okay, so you're relatively new to knowing each other, and relatively new. So are you all singers, or do you play instruments as well? How does it work?
We're all sort of like really into performing from Stagecoach, so that naturally made us all like quite good performers and singers. So that's why.
Okay, we're going to get on to how having diabetes kind of affects your everyday life, etc. But I just want to come back to Karen about making the band. So look, you know, you're a pharmaceutical company. You make drugs. You don't make music. What on earth brought this on? You know, how did it go? And like, were there auditions and all that?
So Sanofi, as you rightly said, is a pharmaceutical company, and you know, we're very proud of our heritage in diabetes. And part of working with any condition is about listening to the people that live with that condition. And you know, what we hear in some recent research is the impact that diabetes still has. And so for us as an organization and with Stagecoach, it was really important to start to, you know, tell people the message about autoimmune type 1 diabetes, to raise its awareness, make people more aware, and reduce the stigma associated with living with type 1 diabetes. And that's where the idea, you know, working with Stagecoach came about, in terms of what can we do, how can we do this? And there's nothing better to spread the awareness and to spread the messages and listening to the people who have the condition themselves. And you know, Sanofi and Stagecoach are both so exceptionally proud of the four amazing girls that have come together, and it's their words in the song. It's them telling their story.
All right. Well, let's get on to them then. Let's talk to four people who are affected every day by having type 1 diabetes. And you know, as teenagers, tell us, you know, how does it affect your everyday life? I think the only rule is one at a time.
And so I think it affects my sports quite a lot, because my blood sugars always go low when I do sports, and I don't really like missing out on that. So I'm trying to work on trying to do that a bit more. But I honestly couldn't do it without all the support from friends and family and people around me.
Okay. So when you're doing sports, what do you do? Do you before you play a game, or what sport do you do?
So I do football sometimes, and I do a lot of dance for Stagecoach. So usually I have to have a like a juice of some sort to give me some sugar to last me throughout, but it doesn't usually last me that long. So it's usually have to sit out.
Okay. So do you monitor your blood sugar levels kind of before and during?
Yeah, so I've got the continuous glucose monitor on my arm, so that connects to my phone and tells me what my blood sugars are throughout.
Okay. How about you? Do any of you other girls do sport?
Yeah, I do a lot of running, so that doesn't really when my levels go low when I'm running, I sometimes have to stop mid-run, which becomes a bit difficult, especially when I'm doing like competition runs.
Okay. And how do you know? Do you have a glucose monitor as well, or do you just feel it? You think, I can feel it's happening now, I'm going to have to stop. How does it work?
So I do have the glucose monitor, but I also have quite heavy hypo symptoms. So I do very much feel when I'm low.
Okay. How about you other two? How does it affect you, the other two girls?
I mean, I also do a lot of dance. I have done dancing for 11 years, and sometimes it does really affect it. But
what kind of dancing do you do?
I do all of it.
Fantastic. All right. So and dancing is hard work. I mean, so my son, he does ballet, and I did a load of sport when I was his age, but he's in much better shape than I ever was. I think dancing is one of those things that is kind of you can get in the best shape ever doing dancing. I really think so. Yeah, nods of agreement there, because you all do dancing. All right, what about the fourth member of the band?
So I do netball and dancing as well. In netball, I normally test, or in all sports at school, I normally test my blood sugar. And on my care plan, it says if I'm below a specific number, then I have to sit out for 20 minutes and have a snack and try and get my blood sugar up to about 7 or 6, which is the normal blood sugar for a human who doesn't have diabetes. But in regards to symptoms, I normally feel low around 4, and I can sense it. So I'm not really worried about like hypos and hypers.
Okay. So the point being, all four of you are affected, you know, and you've got to be very careful, but you're not letting it get in the way. You've got to keep attention, pay attention to it, but you're not letting it hold you back, is the impression I seem to be getting here.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. I mean, so you really can achieve what you want. And I did a little bit of Googling actually, because I knew we were going to be chatting. And I thought, right, I'll just Google famous people with type 1 diabetes and, see who cropped up. Actually, the first one I thought of, I didn't have to Google. I mean, it's not that long ago that someone had the top job with type 1 diabetes. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Prime Minister.
Oh.
Yeah, Theresa May. Okay, that's a pretty good example. So you have to be aware, but it doesn't have to get in the way. Can you tell me anyone else famous that you look up to with type 1 diabetes?
There's a football player called Nacho, I think. And he plays for Real Madrid, I think. I like watching him because it kind of inspires me through sports to be able to do whatever I want.
Yeah, actually, no, I'm sure. There's an actor. I must admit, I didn't know this guy, but he's a modern day actor. James Norton. He's an actor in Grantchester. Anyone heard of him?
No.
Never mind. All right. But the point is, you don't have to let type 1 diabetes get in the way. You can get on and do whatever you want to do. Karen, would you agree? Do you think these girls are just kind of getting on with it, not letting it hold them back?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. You can hear from them all how they're living with diabetes, and that's the message that needs to come across to people, that help them build the community around them, help them to, when they're newly diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, to meet and listen and hear from people who have the condition, who've had it for longer, and how they're going on to shape their lives and live with the condition but not let the condition hold them back.
Yeah. And what are the plans for the band then, Karen? So as well as working for a pharmaceutical company, are you going to have to become a pop band manager as well?
I hope not, because that's definitely not within my skill set. And we have clearly collaborated with Stagecoach for that exact reason, because they're the experts in this area, far from me to be a person.
Maybe we'll better go back to the girls then. What are the plans for the band?
Definitely doing another song.
100%.
Okay. And is it going to get in the charts? Are you in the charts already, actually? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't think we are yet, but
I think that's going to happen.
I think we're on the way.
Okay, that's good. Now, you must realise or have an idea of what I'm going to ask you next, because you sing together, you dance together. Okay, I can see where you're sitting. There's not a lot of room to do dancing, but there's no excuse to hold back on the singing. I might get you to do a bit of singing. Can you do that? I can see some heads are nodding.
Can we do it all together?
What, me as well?
Yeah.
No, I'm not involved in this. Karen might have to sing with you. She's shaking her head. Okay, it looks like the four of you sing together. Is that all right?
Yeah. What do you want us to sing? We can sing the chorus of our song if you want.
That sounds perfect. Sing that.
Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1.
We rise up together, rise up together. We rise up together, rise up. We're in this together. We're hand in hand, and through every challenge, I know you'll understand.
That's absolutely fantastic, guys. Thank you very much. One final thing I'm going to ask you to do, and that's give a message or advice to other, certainly teenagers, but people in general that have type 1 diabetes. What would you suggest? What advice would you give to them?
I would say probably just stay positive as much as you can, because things do get a lot easier and it's not as frightening as it is at first forever.
Yeah, I'd say it all gets easier and you learn more and then you develop as a stronger person.
I would say never give up on your dreams, because honestly, everyone is capable of doing what they want to do.
I would say probably to always stay the same person that you are, even if people treat you differently because they think you've got diabetes, you can still be the same person that you always have been.
Fantastic. I think that is a perfect place to end. So, girls, and Karen, I'm going to call you manager for now. Karen, the manager, thank you so much for taking the time to chat.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Klim Artanoff is MD of Global Tech Limited, and the topic is wood. Wood as a source of fuel, and more specifically, we majored on charcoal. So my first question to him was, what is charcoal and how do you make it?
Well, it's been around for the last 5,000 years, probably, since our caveman ancestors. And if you want to make it yourself, you can dig a hole in the ground, chuck some wood in, get some ground on top of it, and then start burning it. Since then, obviously, the technology has evolved a lot, and now it's state-of-the-art multi-million kilns which make it for us. But essentially, the technology hasn't changed that much, so it's
So you got to burn wood with not much oxygen around, is that it?
Pretty much, yeah. Nice and simple.
Okay, and then the result, the charcoal, burns at a higher temperature than just wood, does it?
Yeah, and for longer. So essentially, what you're looking for in good charcoal is carbon content. So the more carbon there is, the better, the longer burning and the hotter burning it will be.
Okay, all right. So it all sounds very straightforward, very simple. Get a bit of wood, burn it a little bit under special conditions, and you got charcoal. So, what's the problem, Klim?
The problem is that some parts of the world, they still use the methods which were used 1,000 years ago, which is, as I said, digging a hole in the ground. And it's not exactly the most sustainable approach, because with such method, you would need to have around 15 tons of wood to make a ton of charcoal. And that's doesn't sit well with deforestation.
It's not very efficient.
No, not really.
Okay, so if you've got more modern methods of producing charcoal, how many tons of wood do you need to make a ton of charcoal?
Well, what we have in Ukraine at the moment, we use 7 to 8 tons of wood to make a ton of our charcoal, and there are some even more efficient producers in Germany who can only use 6 tons, which is an incredible achievement from their side, and we're striving to get there.
Okay, mind you, it still seems if you need 6 or 7 or 8 tons of wood to make a ton of charcoal, it seems like a lot of wood for not much charcoal.
Yeah, well, if your wood is sustainably harvested in regenerative forests, that kind of solves the question. Because charcoal will give a better burn in general, and especially, in from commercial perspective, in a restaurant, you need a long burning fuel just for those long hours of service.
But in general terms, just for someone like Joe Public, someone like me who doesn't know much about this stuff, chopping down trees seems kind of bad, however it happens. What about, let's just use gas in our barbecues. There's loads of gas barbecues. It's easier to turn it on. It's cleaner to burn. No particulates. Less CO2, is there? I don't know. Surely we should just use gas, shouldn't we, Klim?
Some people do, but it's also a flavor question and health benefits question. So, you'll never get the same grill flavor when you're cooking over gas. And even if I gave you a steak cooked on gas or charcoal, I'm pretty sure you would choose the charcoal one. Just the way it works, it's brief, high heat on top of below your food, and it locks in all the nutrients in the food. So this way, you're not losing any flavor, and actually allows it to expand the flavors. And there's a chemical reaction with the charcoal when the fat is dripping on the charcoal, and then it gets back as smoke. It actually infuses your food with some new aromas and flavors. So it's it would be a nice, different. Yeah.
Okay, so it tastes better, and charcoal is actually hotter, is it, than gas?
Yeah, and once you get used to it, it's actually more manageable. And well, for me at least, it's a lot more fun. There is some art in it, and it is just a bit more fun. It's either you just click a gas barbecue, or you have to light the charcoal like our ancestors did, and it's
Yeah, Clint,
just a bit more
to
fun.
some extent, you are talking to the converted here. I've got a barbecue and I use charcoal, but I know lots of people do like using the gas. Um, I used to live in the States. Lots of people seem to have like gas barbecues in the States. Maybe they just think it's easier. You turn a button and it's on.
Well, definitely, we live in a fast-paced world, so sometimes you don't want to waste another 15 minutes just to wait for your charcoal to be ready.
Yeah. All right. So tell me, you're the charcoal, the barbecue expert. What is the best way to start your barbecue? If you've got a load of charcoal, what's
Yeah.
the best way to get it going? Do you pour on a load of petrol, fire lighters? How do you do it? What's the best way to do it?
Uh, Petrol is an option, probably not the best one, but
Now that's going
it
to
would
make your
definitely
food
be
taste weird, isn't it? I'm sure.
but that would be a nice flame. But the best way I'd say is just use some natural firelighters. So they are called wood wool firelighters, and essentially it's just wood carvings, which are shaped into small bits, and then you pour some charcoal at the bottom of your grill, get a couple of those firelighters, light them, and the charcoal should be ready by itself in 15-20 minutes.
Okay. And so do you make a pile of charcoal and then put the firelighter at the bottom, and then after a while spread all the bricks out? How do you do it?
Yeah, absolutely. So you spread them out. Wait till the charcoal is glowing red, and then that means it's ready to cook. Do not cook on half-lit charcoal because it will just burn your food with flame.
Right. So you want to have it glowing red hot. So you don't want
Yeah,
flames, you just want a glowing red heat, yeah?
yeah, exactly. And that heat is the one which is actually cooking your food. It's not the flame.
Yeah. Okay. So lots of us Brits like barbecues. I suspect lots of us aren't that great at it, and could quite even end up giving our guests food poisoning. Because you alluded to, you got meat that's burnt on the outside and raw on the inside. Give us some tips on how not to poison our guests.
Yeah, we wouldn't want that. But frankly speaking, there is a growing barbecue community in the UK. It's around 150,000 people who do it as much as they can. Like, I know some people during lockdown, they would cook their breakfast, lunch, and dinner on the grill. So there's still, the awareness is growing. Several of those community members have become chefs in restaurants. So in general, the country is getting much better in barbecuing, which is lovely to see some delicious stuff they cook. But to cook better, you can go to those community people. They're so friendly, and everyone will actually give plenty of advice. But some simple rules are just, you know, get some good food, good meat from your local butcher. That's always a plus. And then when it comes to the grill, as I said, glowing red hot charcoal. Probably use a thermometer, which you stick into the meat to look at the internal temperature, and that way it actually makes it a lot more manageable and easier for those who are new to it. Obviously, you're probably more experienced than many others, Mike, so you probably know when your steak is ready. But
I normally barbecue fish. Actually, I don't do steak. I do steak occasionally, but I like to barbecue fish.
all right, yeah, fish is nice.
Yeah, no, it works
Some
very
good
well.
salmon as well.
Yeah. So I'm a convert. I do like barbecues, and yeah, I think probably they are becoming more popular. Um, but what about the whole idea? Is it very? I mean, it can be efficient, but but what about environmentally? Should we all be cooking on barbecues? Because there is a problem. There's a global warming issue, and you just said, that 6 or 7 tons of wood to make a ton of charcoal. Does us barbecuing, changing our habits, does it make any difference to global warming, or is the proportion of kind of amount of people cooking on barbecues, is it so tiny that it makes very little difference?
It would make a difference, but we just need to be careful for which wood or charcoal we buy in the UK, because over 90% of the charcoal used in the country is imported, and it is from countries like Paraguay, Nigeria, Argentina, and Brazil, and not all of the producers there have sustainable practices in place. So this is a concern we need to address and to make sure that we're actually careful when choosing what to burn.
Right. So they might just have older, less efficient ways of making the charcoal, and then presumably the source of the wood comes into play as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So sometimes you do not know what wood is inside the bag you're buying. So it can be all sorts of different woods. Can be the Amazon rainforest, for example. Around 17% of the Amazon deforestation is actually caused by charcoal making, which is worrying. So I feel like we just need to be more careful of who we're choosing, because there are other producers who have rigid sustainability practices like regenerative forests. So, for example, we use a byproduct of plywood production when making our products. And
We'll say that again. A byproduct of what?
Of plywood production.
Okay.
So the way it works, it's they have massive forests in Ukraine, and they regrow trees on a five year circle. And then once a part of the forest grows to 5 years, they cut it down, plant new trees, and then the next year they use the other part of the forest. And there are also many British charcoal makers who are extremely responsible and make good quality.
So you import from Ukraine by the sounds of things?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. Now, is there kind of a way of knowing when you're buying your charcoal whether it's from a decent, sustainable source? Is there kind of a stamp on the bag? How can people know?
There are two major stamps. One is called FSC, and another one is PEFC. So they are put on the bags, and if they're there, you know that most likely it's from a good source.
Most likely.
There have been cases of producers just, getting their FSC certificate for a ton of charcoal and then selling 20 tons of charcoal. So there are obviously still issues, but FSC are doing a great job.
Tell us, you mentioned two lots of initials there. Tell us what they stand for.
So FSC is Forest Stewardship Council, and they are a European company. They look into into supply chain custody of wood, and the other one is Program for the Endorsement of Forest Certification, and they're quite similar in their purpose, just slightly different methods of control and checking up on suppliers, but both are very good.
So these initials are stamped on a bag of charcoal when you buy it, or can be. Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
Okay. All right. So that's charcoal. What about if you're in this world? Perhaps you've got some views on using wood more generally to produce power. Is wood a sensible way forward for more than just barbecues?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, it's an incredible material which has been around for all of our civilization, and anything can be done with it. And it's easy enough to regrow. It's not like oil or gas, which is not renewable. So I'd say wood is a good source of power, but we just need to be responsible with not cutting down forests everywhere just for the sake of it.
Yeah. So, Clem, is that your kind of personal view, or can you quote any learned societies or people that have actually investigated this and, done some research?
Do you mean for the sustainability part?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. There are several reports of the World Health Organization about the unsustainable practices in wood and charcoal production. There's also an organization called CIFOR, it's CIFOR, which has made a research that if charcoal manufacturers used improved kilns, they would reduce emissions by 70% of their production.
So are these things peer reviewed, or is because if I was in the business of growing wood and chopping it down and selling it, my results might be a little skewed.
Yeah, of course, but there are also reports by the UN, which is probably not likely to be skewed, or my company is just not large enough to do that. I haven't been at that level yet. And we wouldn't.
No, the reason I ask is so I did a little bit of Googling before we spoke, which obviously is a very dangerous thing because you're never quite sure what Googling is gonna throw up. But I found something called the Partnership for Policy Integrity, which is a US-based advocacy for data-driven environmental policies. And so I read on. I thought maybe they've got something to say on the subject. And they say that power plants that burn biomass, they emit 150% more CO2 than coal. And also they cut down a load of trees. So there's obviously kind of two camps here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know what you mean, and we definitely need to look into this deeply. But we might actually have an alternative solution in Globaltic. And it's not an ad, I'm just sharing what we've achieved.
Share it. Tell us.
Basically, we've made a charcoal without any wood. So that should resolve the problem. It's made of hazelnut shells. So it's recycled hazelnut shells, which have 95% carbon content. And in charcoal world, the more carbon you have, the better.
Yeah.
So, and obviously, it's the most.
Where are hazelnuts grown?
Ukraine.
They're grown in Ukraine as well. Okay, all right.
Yeah, and that might be a solution even for power because they burn better than any charcoal I've ever tried, and I've tried quite a bit more than I'd like to admit. And it is sustainable, and it does not emit any smoke when burning.
So this is something you've tried?
That's something that's one of our main products in the country, which is already in this country.
Yeah, okay, that's very interesting. So how come no one's done this before?
It's not an easy process. There's only one place in Ukraine who's capable of making it. It's a totally different production process from normal charcoal. So it's different equipment, different kilns, and different workers who need to be taught how to make it.
Okay, that's interesting. And is there potential for making kind of the amounts you need for? I mean, forget charcoal for a few little barbecues. Get it involved, get it into the Drax power station. Is it possible to make enough to make power?
Well, Ukraine produces millions of tons of hazelnut per year, so probably wouldn't cover all the power needs we have, but it could cover some, definitely.
Okay. This is very interesting. I will have to invite you back on in a little while when you've you've done more of this, you've produced this, and see how that's going.
So we already have it available.
Okay, all right.
I can even send you a bag to try.
Hey, I would love to try, but I told you I like barbecuing, and I've never really thought that much about what I'm burning on the barbecue. I like to buy charcoal rather than briquettes. I'm not really sure why. It just seems nicer, but essentially, we're talking about something here that I know very little about. So, yeah, you are educating me, I would say, Clem. So this is very interesting. If people want to find out a bit more about the charcoal that you can supply and what they need to do to ensure they're buying charcoal from a good source, even hazelnut charcoal, and using charcoal and wood for power, can you point them to any resources where they can get some very good balanced information? I'm thinking maybe specifically any websites.
Yeah, absolutely. There is obviously the FSC website, which is very good because it has a list of responsible producers. There's also a section on the UN website for the deforestation in general, which will show people the countries which have the risk of deforestation and have bad practices, and countries with good practices, obviously. And we have done a couple of our own researches on our website for our blog posts. That's not as good as the other two names I mentioned, but we're trying our best. There's also the Sustainability magazine. They have had several articles on the topic. And we can obviously Google and ChatGPT it. It's have to be careful with that, but they come up with some good information.
Okay, excellent. All right, Clem, this is an interesting topic, so thank you very much for coming and chatting about it. It's much appreciated.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much to my guests on this week's show, and they were Karen Palmer of Sanofi and the 4 members of the band Group 1 talking about diabetes type 1, and Klim Artanoff, Managing Director of Global Tick Limited, talking about wood as a source of fuel and charcoal. And please do remember to check out my book. It's called Cut the Crap, Ask the Questions That Matter About Your Health, and it's based on previous guests to the show and is available on Amazon. Thank you to you for listening, and have a healthy week until next week.
Thanks for listening to the Relax Back UK show. Join me, Mike Dilk, again next week for more fascinating interviews and chat. If you're listening to the podcast version, please subscribe, like, and share it with your family and friends. And have a healthy week until next week.